everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and welcome back to another pickup video where I'll be talking about all the different pickups of physical media, whether it be video games, movies, music, manga, and books, and all the fun shit. So yeah, this will be the first one I'm doing at my new place, and it's not a shithole. Yeah, because I know it was a shithole for a little while, but I've gotten it a lot cleaned up now. At least there's actually space on the floor. I don't know how well you can see behind me, but yeah, I think it looks okay so far. Though I do need to get some newer shelves, but I'll discuss that whenever I do a room tour at some point. Which I don't even know if I will, but we'll see. We'll see how things go right here. But anyways, yeah, let's just get right to it. So first off, with the video games, we're going to be doing the Switch games, and that's really the only system I've been really getting physicals for lately, and this one happens to be Master Detective Project Raincode, and this is a game that I was actually really looking forward to when I first found out about it, because, it's made by the same guy who does the Danganronpa games, and I'm a fan of that series, and, and this looks like, not only does it have the same similar art style, but it even has, similar ideas where it's all about, detective and murder, and then apparently there's also some, dungeon crawling in this, from what I've heard, which is kind of interesting. So I'm actually very curious in trying this one out. Unfortunately, all these new games that I've been getting, I haven't tried any of them out lately because, haven't had the time of the world for it yet. But I'm actually really hoping to play this one, relatively soon, as, like I said, it was one that I was, really looking forward to when I first found out about it. But, yeah, like I said, looks really fucking cool. And also, I haven't looked up, a crazy amount of things about it because, I don't want to get spoiled. And the next one we got is a very interesting one, and whenever these cases happen in recent years, it does make me a little happy, and that is Kamawaze Way of the Thief. And this is a game that, believe it or not, this is a remaster of a game that we didn't get originally. So the original version was on the PS2, and it was only in Japan, and now we have it over here in English, officially, which is really fucking cool. Like I said, whenever shit like that ever happens, it always makes me happy. And especially to, a random game like this, because, I didn't know anyone who was talking about this shit. In fact, I almost mentioned it in one of my Games I Wish Got fan translation videos, but then when it got announced, I'm like, well, looks like I don't need to mention it anymore. But, yeah, no, this game looks pretty cool. Kind of looks like a Tenchu type game, and I believe it's made by Acquire, the same people that did Way of the Samurai and all that, which is very interesting. Alright, and as for the final game in this video, this is actually a big looking one, because it's a collector's edition that I found that I didn't even know this game even had a collector's edition at all, and that happens to be Witch in the Holy Night. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's a pretty nice looking box, and even the back is really nice looking too with the pictures on there. So yeah, so this is a visual novel that is from the company Type Moon, the same company that put out the Fate Stay Night and all that series, and I'm a fan of that. So and I always thought it was kind of interesting that that company never made any official English releases of any of their games ever. And then they finally brought us this, and we're actually getting the other one there, which is the... Okay, so this is the prequel to the other one, and then the first one, I forget the name of it right now, it's starts with a T, it's Sume or some shit. Yeah, I'll put it up there so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so this is the prequel one, so I guess you can say this is kind of like the Fate Zero, I guess, to that. But, yeah, so what this game is about, from what I remember, is that it's about, there's, witches that, somehow, live in, the modern times, and also it takes place in, the 80s. So, I guess you can call that the modern times, but But yeah, it takes place in the 80s, which is kind of interesting, though I don't think they're going to be talking about, Pogs or fucking Atari or some shit. I don't think they'll be talking about that, but it's one of those games that takes place in the 80s, which is interesting, and like I said, it has to do with, witches and, why they're here. That's basically all I know, I've been saying with the other games. I haven't looked up a crazy amount of stuff onto it because I don't want to, find spoilers and shit, but I have heard that this is actually a very interesting series that is, different from Fate Stay Night and all that, so, yeah, like I said, I'll try to get to this one soon, hopefully. I'm actually currently playing through visual novels, so, as much as I like them, I can't, just burst through, playing them all the time, but still, though. I think that, the first game is going to be coming out in like a couple months. So. Alright, now we're going to be moving on to the movies. Unfortunately, I did not get any anime movie DVDs or anything like that, but I did found two movies here. So this one right here is actually a newer one that came out this year, and that is Renfield with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Yes, it's as like funny as it sounds. So this is basically like Dracula if it took place in like the modern day, but of course Dracula is like still alive, and then he has like his assistant Renfield ends up like teaming up with him, and then like I said, they're in the modern day, and it's like there's a lot of like really dumb like funny jokes in it, as you would expect. Like obviously like Nicolas Cage is like acting is just hilarious and over the top. Although he doesn't lose his shit in this one, but he does like does this over exaggerated like acting, and it's just great. But I even really like the other actors in here too. Like the one female character that plays Quincy, I don't know her actor name, I wasn't familiar with her, but she was actually like really funny. Like there's like one part in the movie where Renfield offers like her cookies, and she's like, "I don't want your fucking murder cookies." I just like the way how she said it. It was just too funny. But yeah, surprisingly really good movie. And, another thing that makes me laugh is this right here where it says, Dracula Sucks Edition. So, it's funny. Alright, and as for the last movie here, this is actually a box set. Another one. It's another Stephen King set. It is, well, it doesn't really have a special name. It's just literally called Stephen King Movie TV Collection. That's, yeah, not a fancy name like the other one was called The King of Horror, which is cool, but this one, yeah, doesn't have any fancy names. But this one has, like, completely different stuff than the other one, so that's why I got this one. This one has, The Stand, which, like probably one of the best books ever, according to a lot of people, which I haven't read yet. Well, I've tried reading The Stand years ago when I was, like, a teenager, but it was, like, way over my head, and I was like, nah, I'm too dumb for this shit. But I think I could read it now, but there's just a couple of ones I want to read first. But the TV movie to The Stand, because it's the original one, not the remake one that they did recently, but yeah, the original one, though, I do remember watching it with my dad years ago, and I remember it being really good. But, which is partly the reason why I wanted to, to read the book eventually, but, yeah, it's been a long time, though, since I've seen it, but I do remember a few things about it. Like, I remember, what's his face? Randall Flagg is, like, played by this, like, blonde-haired guy, and he kind of looks like, Malfoy from freaking, Harry Potter. I mean, it's not the same actor, but he kind of, like, has that look to him, where he's, like, that blonde-haired, like, asshole type, which is interesting. Then there's the Langoliers, which is another very, like, amusing one. That's the one that's, like, where they're on, like, a plane, but the plane goes into, like, a loop in time, and then there's, like, these, like, monsters called the Langoliers that eat time. But, of course, the movie's, like, special effects is, like, so bad that it's hilarious. Like the monsters, like, they look like Walnut Pac-Man. It's just funny. But, no, the movie's actually pretty good, though, despite the bad effects, though. I do remember really enjoying that one when I was younger. Then there's the Golden Years, which this is actually one of the few ones I didn't even know about, because it's not based after a book. I thought it would be, but no, it's actually one where he wrote the screenplay for, and then it got turned into a TV movie. But yeah, I don't know a lot about that one. I should have looked it up before doing this, but fucking I don't know. Maybe one of you guys knows more about it than I do. But I know I've never seen it. I never knew about it. But hey, cool that it's on here. Maybe we'll have to watch it. Then there's The Dead Zone, which is another great one that I really liked. That's the one with Christopher Walken. Yeah, and, where he, has, the power to, see other people's deaths, and then apparently he can see, one of the, the governors is, could lead us to World War III, so he has to, kill him before it happens. It's very, very, very good. And then there's Pet Sematary, the original one, which I'm very mixed on this movie. I think the movie is, I think I talked about it, actually, yeah, when I picked up the book. Yeah, I think I did say, yeah, there are some parts about it that are good and they're well made, and then there's parts that are just, kind of shit and not fitting to the tone whatsoever. But yeah, so I talked about that. And there's two more. There's Silver Bullet, which that's the werewolf one. I remember watching that one, but I don't remember much about it. All I remember was that it had Corey Haim in it, who died at a very young age, and then it also had the I remember, like, the way how they were trying to make, like, the one guy, like, the werewolf guy to, like, you know, like, the die was so stupid, and they're like, they literally send him a note saying, kill yourself, because, you know, that'll work. That's like the one thing I do remember, that was, like, so dumb, but, yeah, I'd have to rewatch that one again, because that's literally all I remember about it. And then there's Graveyard Shift, which is a pretty terrible film that's about rats. And the only interesting thing I remember about it was that Brad Dourif is in it, the voice of Chucky, which is interesting. So yeah, this one does have some good stuff in here, but also some questionable ones. But hey, you know what? It ain't all bad. But still, though, I'm like I said, I was just glad to be able to get The Stand, The Langoliers, and The Dead Zone. Those were like the main ones that I really wanted, and I have them all in here. Alright, now on to the music. I only found 4 albums recently, and we'll start with the metal ones first. Although this one is a pretty obvious one, and that is Judas Priest with Screaming for Vengeance. Great album, definitely one of my favorites for sure. You know, like obviously Electric Eye. You know, the Riding on the Wind, I think, is like one of the catchiest songs on this album. You know, Pain and Pleasure, Screaming for Vengeance, of course, and, you know, Devil's Child, and, you know, you got some bonus tracks, too. But, yeah, you know, I always loved this album cover, too. I always thought it looked really cool. And, of course, yeah, like I said, there's not much I can say about it that already has been said before. It's definitely one of the most, like, one of the more popular ones, and, well, for a good reason. And as for the next metal album I found, this is one I was surprised I found, because normally I, like, never see this band, like, anywhere, like, ever. And that is, Dark Moor. Now, I have one of their albums, but I had to order it online, which tells you, like, how rare I find these. But yeah, I actually found this in my area, and I was like, holy shit, like, that's awesome. And also, I fucking love this album, too. Yeah, so this is a power metal band with a female vocalist. Like, the very first song I ever heard was actually on this album. This very first song I heard was Silver Lake, which I've heard in a YouTube video, like, ages ago. I don't remember what the YouTube video was. It might have been, like, Mugen related, probably. I don't know. I know I've heard, like, a lot of, like, interesting power metal bands from Mugen videos back in the day, and I think that this might have been one of them, but yeah, so yeah, there's that song, which is awesome. Then there's, like, you know, Maiden of Orleans and Somewhere in Dreams. Oh, man, yeah, Beyond the Fire. Yeah, really, really good album. I really love this one a lot. I still think Tear It is my favorite, which is the other one I own. But this one is, like, maybe my second favorite or third. I don't know. It's tough to say. Alright, and next we got some progressive-related stuff. Well, I guess someone would argue this isn't technically prog rock, but, you know, it has prog rock people in it, so I guess it counts. Because this is Asia's Debut, and I fucking love this album cover. Definitely one of my favorites, but then again, it is painted by Roger Dean, who is an amazing artist, and yeah, I love his artwork. I'm pretty sure I've talked about him, because I've picked up other albums that were from him, but yeah. So yeah, like I said, Asia's a great 80s rock band that I really enjoy a lot, and all the members in the band were from prog rock bands from the 70s, which is, you know, but of course this isn't really, like, prog rock per se, even though, like, there are some parts you can kind of tell, like, a little bit, but for the most part it is, like, you know, like, typical 80s, like, rock, I guess. But no, I really enjoyed this album a lot. A lot of really good, catchy tunes, lots of upbeat stuff that, you know, I could just listen to and just be like, yeah. I don't know. But still, though, like, I adore this album a lot. Probably one of their best albums for sure. And as for the final album here, this is one of my favorite bands, and it's an album that, like, I personally never see around, like, anywhere at all, so I was surprised I found it, which is weird, because it's not like it's a rare album or anything, but, yeah, so this is King Crimson's Lizard. I almost called it Circus, because that's, like, the, you know, the picture here, and then that's also the name of the first track, but anyways, no, I really like this album a lot. Also, the cover art is really fucking cool. In fact, if you go to the back, like, it actually spells out the name in this, like, really cool, like, medieval tapestry style. In fact, I actually had an idea of having my, my banner for my YouTube channel, like, looking kind of similar to this, but spelling, like, you know, with my name. I think that would actually be fucking sick. The only thing is that it would just be kind of hard to make it, like, look right with, like, the stupid sizing thing, but anyways, with all that aside, though, no, this album's really cool. It's a very weird album. I'll say this, if you've never heard this band at all, I don't think this would be a good starting point because this is a very strange album, but I personally really love it. In fact, funny enough, this actually was like the first album I heard like from top to bottom, so yeah. But I'll be honest though, when I first heard this album, I was not sure what to think about it. But over time though, it really grew on me, and I can, like I actually really like it a lot more now than I did back then though. And now, get into the manga and books section, where we get to go up into my new bedroom, which is a lot smaller than my other one, but that's okay. I managed to make it work. So, firstly, let's take a look at the manga books. So the first one we have here is Drifting Classroom by Kazuo Umez, who is a very influential manga artist in the horror section, and his work was a huge influence on Junji Ito, which is like a big name. And this one always fascinated me, as it's about a classroom that ends up getting teleported to a whole new world that's filled up with a bunch of gross monsters, and they have to try to survive every day. Not only does it sound like a fun time, but also like his artwork for this one is just like insanely well detailed that it's just really freaking cool looking. Unfortunately I haven't read it yet, but it is pretty high up on my TBR, so it shouldn't take me too long to get around to this one. And we'll go to the next Kazuo Umez, being the third volume of Orochi. Yes, I've actually still continuing getting this one. In fact, there's only one more left that I need, and then I have the whole complete set. And unfortunately, I also have not been able to read this one, but I have read volume 1, and I really liked it enough to try to like get the rest of them. And when it comes to these hardcover mangas, I feel like the Orochi one is easily my favorite in terms of design. Like, they're just so freaking beautiful looking. It has a nice, bright, shiny writing. I like the way how, like, the black and the light brown is, like, mixed together with the drawing of the artwork. It just looks really great. And right beside that one, we have another very beautiful hardcover set, and that is the Volume 2 of The Girl from the Other Side. Now, this is another one that, no surprise, I haven't actually gone around reading yet, and I feel like I should, given that I have 2 of them already, but I have a feeling this is one that I am going to like, for that it does have a really nice art style. Also the concept of the story sounds pretty interesting. Also, you gotta love the fact that the main demon character kind of looks like a metal icon or something. So I'll definitely try to make an effort of reading the first 2 volumes here before trying to get 3 and 4. And next we have is Fist of the North Star with volumes 7 and 8, with Toki and Juza of the Clouds on the cover. I always found that Juza was a pretty fun character, so it's cool to see him on one of these covers. So yeah, I'm slowly picking up more of these Fist of the North Star volumes, and I've heard that volume 10 is where the Rao arc ends, and that's like the best part of the whole series, so yes. Once I get volume 10, that's where I'm going to be binge reading like all these volumes that I've been picking up slowly. Of course, I do plan on picking up the ones that will come out after, that's like the whole after story when the younger characters get older and there's like a time skip sort of thing. Because that one also does have some really good shit parts from what I remember the TV series. And next up we have is another new one that I started, and yes, I actually read this one, and that is Alice in Borderland. And no, not to be confused with Alice in Wonderland being stuck in the video game Borderlands. So what's funny about this one was that I was staying up pretty late, and I ended up like wanting to read this one. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna read it for a little bit and then go to bed. And then I ended up reading the whole thing in one night. So that should kind of tell you how much I really like this one. So pretty much what this one's about is that these 3 characters, they end up getting teleported to this weird dreamlike world where they have to play these survival death games to survive. So kind of similar to stuff like Dead Man Wonderland or, The Running Man with Arnold in it, and then there's also Squid Games, it's also kind of similar too. So yeah, no surprise here, but yeah, just like all those other ones that I really like, this one I like just as much so far. And just to give you an idea, is that the very first game that the main characters play is a game of tag, but the person that's it is a maniac with wearing a horse mask chasing them down with a submachine gun. Like, it's pretty over the top and kick-ass. And next we have another news series that came out, and this is another one that I actually read too, and that is Heart Gear. Yeah, it's like Metal Gear. Nah, I'm just kidding, but there is a lot of machinery stuff that has to do with it. So the best way I can describe this one is that it's about this post-apocalyptic world, and this purple-haired girl you see on the cover is apparently one of the last humans on Earth, and she is raised by a bunch of robots. Well, more like one robot. But then there's another robot that she ends up finding who looks like a refrigerator, and then it turns out that that refrigerator robot turns into the guy that you see on the cover with the white hair and the red armor. Now that I think about it, his color scheme definitely definitely looks very Dante-like. So anyways, one of the main reasons why they're together is because the main robot that raised her ends up being destroyed, and then he ends up saving the AI compartment. So there is a chance that he can actually come back to life, and that's why they're traveling together and they meet newer characters and such. And yeah, I gotta say, for a newer series that I just took a random chance on, I like it quite a bit, and I will definitely continue it for sure. And next up we have is a video game one, being The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess in manga form. And something that you may not have known about me, but I actually have read the Ocarina of Time and the Majora's Mask manga online back in the day using a web browser. And I found them to be alright. Not bad, but not great. But they did make one interesting change that I always thought made more sense, was that they actually put Shadow Link in the Shadow Temple rather than in the Water Temple. Well anyways, enough about that. So as for the Twilight Princess manga, part of the reason why I wanted to get this is two reasons. One, Twilight Princess is actually one of my favorite 3D Zelda games, and two, I've heard from a lot of people that the manga version of Twilight Princess is like one of the best Zelda mangas that they've ever made. For that, not only did they give Link a very interesting personality in this one, wherein I feel like in the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask one, his personality was a little bland. But I also heard, too, that they actually really expand upon a lot of stuff in these mangas that were not in the video games, which I actually think is pretty interesting, so I really want to see more of that. Of course, I haven't read this one volume yet, but I will definitely read it once I get a couple more volumes later on. Alright, and as for the last one in the manga section, happens to be Akira, one of the most popular anime films of the 80s, and yes, I'm finally going to be reading Akira, the original source material, as I've always wanted to. And originally, I wanted to get that huge box set that looks really epic looking, but unfortunately, I just never see it anywhere anymore, and when I do, it's like really expensive. But after seeing the original volume prices, I realized that, you know, it actually would be easier to just get them individually, so that's what I decided to do. So yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this one that hasn't been said before, but once I get a couple more volumes of this, I will definitely see what the original source material was all about. And now we're going to be moving on to the book section, the last one. So because I pretty much finished my Stephen King collection, now the next thing I gotta do is collect his son's work, which is Joe Hill. And this is actually the first book that he wrote, and it is a Heart-Shaped Box. And yes, that Nirvana song is not far off, given that this story is all about a musician. And it has a lot to do with ghosts and possession and, you know, supernatural kind of stuff like that. So this will be a very interesting one to read about. And as for the next two we have here, these are two books I ended up buying at the same time from someone in the area, and that is Justin Cronin's The 12, which is a sequel to The Passage, which I got from the last pickup video, so because it is a sequel to a book that I haven't read yet, I can't really say a whole lot about it, but to sum it up was that it's about a post-apocalyptic situation, but it's being taken over by a bunch of vampires, which sounds really fucking cool. So there's not a whole lot else I can say about that, but as for the one beside it, Dark Matter from Blake Crouch, this is one that I can't wait to read. For that, not only have I heard that this is one of his best books that he's written so far, but the idea of it also sounds very fascinating, for that it's about like having like different timelines and parallel universes and all this like crazy stuff, and also just like with Michael Crichton, apparently he writes these like really complex ideas but puts them simply so it's easy for you to understand. So yeah, it sounds really awesome, and I have heard that they might turn this one into a movie or like a TV series or something, so that'll be very interesting to see. And next we got is this very shiny covered one called Snow Crash from Neil Stephenson. Now, this is a book that I've heard a lot of very interesting things about. So, the first thing I have to mention is that this was a book that really helped elevate the cyberpunk genre, and it also predicted a lot of very interesting things, like the internet, and like how everything's going to be online only and all this kind of shit. And you gotta keep in mind too, this book originally came out in like the late 80s, early 90s, so it's gonna be kind of cool reading this today, just like hearing like what they thought about at that time. And on top of that too, another thing I have to say that's pretty amusing is that one of the main characters in this book is a delivery guy who's kind of a nerd, and he walks around casually with a Japanese samurai sword. That just sounds like something that, like, weebs would fantasize about, so I guess you could say he also predicted weebs too. So I'll probably read this one sometime in 2024, most likely. Alright, and these next two right here are ones that I actually got at the Goodwill just before I moved out of my old place, and yeah, as you can see, I forgot to take the sticker off that one. So first we have is Ken Follett's Night Over Water. So this is a World War II book that takes place entirely on a plane going across the ocean, and apparently there's like a huge like murder mystery that happens within the plane, which sounds kind of cool and different for a World War II book, so I actually am very curious about that. And the only other thing that I know Ken Follett for was that he actually wrote the book to Pillars of Eternity, which not only as I heard it's like one of his best books ever, but I also know that it actually got made into a video game. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I may have to do a video on books that got turned into video games, because I feel like that's something that not a lot of people talk about. But anyways, that's like the only thing I'll say on that. And then the one beside that one is the Maltese Falcon, which I only knew about it because of the old black and white movie, which is actually a really good movie. And I knew about it all thanks to James Rolfe, so hey, that's great. But yeah, I had no idea there was a book base after it, and the thing that's cool about this version is that this is a Folio Society edition. For those that don't know, Folio Society is a company that puts out these really cool special edition versions of hardcover books that look really beautiful looking. As you can see here, not only do you get a little dust-covered box, but also the book itself like has like some illustrations inside that were not in the original version, and then of course they also have like really cool covers. Like I really like the way how they have like the red and like the black falcon on it. It just looks really sick. So I was shocked at finding a Folio Society book at a Goodwill, because when I actually looked them up, most of them are not cheap. And next up we have here is a very unique looking one, and that is Horror Store from Grady Hendrix. Now this is a new horror author that I don't know a whole lot about, but this is the one book that I know him for, and this book is basically about a haunted IKEA, which sounds hilarious. And as you can tell by the cover and the way how it's shaped, it does look very much like an IKEA catalog, which is really cool. And if you open up the certain pages, it shows different products of some of the furniture that are within the store, and some of them are pretty amusing. So yeah, the guy definitely went above and beyond when it comes to making it very charming and amusing, and that's what's kind of got me interested in wanting to read it. And next we have is a fantasy book, and this is one that I literally just bought because I thought the cover art looked really cool, and I read the back, and I thought it sounded kind of interesting, and that was Green Rider. So from what I remember, this one is about this girl who's coming home from school. She walks into the woods and she finds someone who is about to die, and he passes on a message to her, and then right after that there's a bunch of assassins trying to assassinate her before she can reach that message to the other guy that she's supposed to deliver the message to. That's pretty much the gist of it. Now, I could be off on a couple things about it, but I do think it does sound pretty interesting and fun, and I definitely do need to start off with a fantasy book that isn't, like, super daunting to start. And as for the next two, we have more fantasy books, and the first one we got here is The Swordswoman from Jessica Amanda Salmons. This is another one that I actually got before I moved. I found it at a thrift store, and I thought it looked kind of interesting, but the one thing that is unfortunate is that when I was moving, this is one of the few books that got slightly damaged, as you can tell with these little white spots. Yeah, they weren't there before, so that kind of sucks, and it's going to annoy me, but hey, at least it's still readable. So anyways, this one is about a girl who ends up getting teleported to another world that's filled up with a bunch of giant insects, which sounds really creepy, and apparently she ends up wanting to become like a swordswoman, as you might tell from the title, but yeah, actually sounds kind of cool. And then the one beside it, I literally just bought because I just thought it looked cool, and it was actually not expensive either, but it's a fantasy series that is not super long and daunting to start, and that is the Fortress series. And yes, this is the second book, is the Fortress of Eagles, and yeah, unfortunately I don't know a whole lot else other than that, but it's gonna take a while before I get to this one, as I need to get the first one first. And next up we got is some Eric von Lusterbader books, and I'm almost done getting all the ones I want. And this is the Ninja series, or at least the first two here. So the first one here is the very first one in the series, called The Ninja. Yeah, what a great name. But it is interesting to note that this cover art is actually the uncensored version of the cover, because there's actually later versions of it where the bottom half of the blade is like completely blank, so you only see like the top half of it. But no, this one is like the uncensored one, so that's kind of neat, I guess. And then the second one here is actually book number 3, and that is White Ninja. And this one actually has a pretty cool looking cover too. I like the checkerboard cover in the background. But yeah, as you can imagine, these books are all about ninjas and crime and yakuzas and all this kind of crazy stuff. So I'm very interested in wanting to see where this one goes. And then the last one here is French Kiss, which is unrelated to the other two. I don't think it's in a series. I think it just might be like a standalone. Can't really remember, but yeah, alongside with White Ninja though, I got these two at the same time at another thrift store, like, recently, so I figured since I grabbed one, I might as well just grab the other. And finally, as for the final book within this video that I got, happens to be James Clavell Gaijin, and this is a part of the Asian saga, so related to the one book I got a couple months ago was Noble House, I believe it was. And yeah, I'm still trying to track down all the other ones, like King Rad and mostly Shogun, which is the first one, and that one's actually getting really tricky to find, and apparently they are making a new TV series out of it, which looks interesting. I think there's actually another one that came out in the 80s that I would like to watch eventually. So yeah, unfortunately I don't know a whole lot about this one other than that it's like a continuation of it, and one thing that does amuse me is that if you look at the cover art and certain lighting, you kind of see like little lines coming down in the black part. It kind of makes it look like a gun barrel scene within a James Bond movie. So there you have it. That's all the stuff that I picked up recently. So as always, if there's anything here that you know anything about or anything that you didn't know about, then just let me know and we can have a discussion about it. So as always, thank you for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.